Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Green Chai, conversations with global majority Greens with me, Animah Hamza, and my co-host Hamza Eagle. Today, we're so delighted to be joined by the hero of Hare Hills, Cllr Mothin Ali, who is standing as Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. Welcome, Mothin.
Welcome, Councillor.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's campaign season.
Yeah, it's absolutely hectic at the moment. Just getting things organised, doing media interviews, going out and talking to people. It's really busy. And on top of that is casework.
Well, we're really honoured that you've taken the time out to be with us today. Thank you.
As soon as I get an invite from you, so how can I refuse? Eh?
You're too kind. All right, Animah, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Actually, Hamza, I think you have the first question that you'd like to ask Mothin.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Mothin, tell us about yourself. What shaped your journey? What brought you here standing for Deputy Leader? And what's been the defining moment that made you take that step?
I grew up in a really poor neighbourhood in Sheffield. So I was born in Sheffield. I moved to Leeds when I was a teenager. And we've always lived in poverty, at the risk of homelessness, the risk of real poverty, and all the associated problems with that. Um, and and one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that people like me have a voice. The community that I represent in Gipton and Hare Hills, that's the area that I grew up in. Krakow was a couple of doors away, not up the road. People who were, turning up at all hours of the day. And because of this type of neighborhood it was, you'd have people just walking into your house. We didn't have a front garden. You walked out your front door straight onto the road. So you'd have drunken people stumbling into the house thinking that they were going to their own house, and then a situation of constant alertness.
Yes.
And with all those risks of poverty, we didn't have enough to eat when we were growing up. I remember taking my son to my first son to one of his appointments with his health visitor, and they were doing his growth charts, and they were talking about how tall he's going to be in the future because of how tall we are. I mean, we were malnutritioned when we were kids. We were malnourished. But these kids, alhamdulillah, my son's 14, he's taller than I am. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
We had that situation, right? And alhamdulillah, I managed to get into a decent job, and we got into a house that we own ourselves that has a garden. But my community is still left behind. It's been underrepresented for years and years and years, and people have taken that community for granted. And that's what happened with a lot of inner city areas that are dominated by one party rule. It's either going to be Labour or it's going to be no one else.
Right.
That breeds complacency. So the politicians, the authorities, they don't take much notice. And the same thing happened in my area, Gipton and Hare Hills. And one of the things I said about 15, 20 years ago was, if someone doesn't step up from within the community to actually represent the community properly, I'll do it one day. And I mean, I got on with my life, and I forgot all about that. I was busy campaigning on anti-racism. I was busy campaigning on anti-war, that sort of thing that took all my time. Party politics wasn't for me. I was a Labour member, so I'd go out and campaign for the likes of Richard Bergen. I'd campaign for my local councillors. But apart from that, I never thought I wanted to do that. And then one day I turned up at a Green Party meeting, and it was in 2022, towards the end of COVID. And I turned up thinking, I'm going to meet a bunch of hippies, people who are going to want to be talking about gardening, and I'll find some people who I can share gardening stories with. So I turned up at a meeting, and guess what it was? It was candidate selection day. And they had their target candidate. I mean, target to win. They had one target candidate,
Right.
and everyone else was just a paper candidate. So they wanted me to be a paper candidate in a far off ward somewhere that didn't really matter to me. And I was like, if you want to use my name, then you have to either use it in Gipton Hare Hills or you have to use it in Roundhay, because I live in Roundhay. I grew up in Gipton Hare Hills, and these are the areas that matter. And there was a guy in the room's like, I'm the candidate for Gibson Hare Hills. I don't really care. You can have that if you want.
And the rest is history.
The rest is
The rest
history.
is history.
Wow.
Amazing. It's fate.
And what's your
Yeah.
secret? Because as you said, that was not a target to win ward. So how did you manage to win it?
I mean, my first election was in 2022, right? So about 4 weeks before, after just, when it's time to hand in your papers to be on the ballot, and I was refused by the party. You're a paper candidate, you're not getting anything. So I said, I carried on bugging the coordinator, and I was like, look, you put my name forward, you've got to give me something now. And I think he got fed up with me nagging, and he said, all right, there you go, you can have some leaflets, right? So I got some basic leaflets out. And within about a 4-week campaign, we'd taken the vote count from almost non-existent, from about 300 votes to over 1,000 votes.
Amazing.
And in some areas of the country, in some of council seats, that's enough to win an election, right? But we got to 1,000 votes, and that was the first person to get, as a runner-up in Hare Hills, to get to 1,000 votes in about 20 years. No one's seen that sort of breakthrough since the Iraq War time. And then the year after, I started getting a little bit more organised, still campaigning on a very tight budget, but we started building a real ground movement. People started getting to know me a lot more, that I'm active in politics and I'm trying to do things for the community. So we started building up a real ground game. And I found this one volunteer, and she came along and she transformed my campaign. Yeah, she got me a lot more organised. I'm very practical, but what I was trying to be is very practical and be very admin-y at the same time. So what Cllr did in 2024 was she took over the whole admin side. So I wrote I gave a specs of an article, gave the pictures, this is what I want in it, and then a couple of days later I'd have a leaflet on my desk.
Amazing.
So
Shout out to
she's
Cllr.
such a game changer like that. So Cllr was absolutely amazing. Really instrumental. And she took over the role of my campaign manager. So I wasn't managing my own campaign and campaigning at the same time. So it freed me up, to just hit the streets. And I was out from morning, I'd leave my house at 9 o'clock in the morning after I dropped my kids off at school, and I wouldn't come home until it was dark, that sort of thing. So I was out for 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes, 30, 40,000 steps a day. And I keep joking that I'm going to start billing the Green Party for my because I go through them that fast. A pair of shoes used to last me a year, but now it's lasting me a couple of months. But in 2024, because people were fed up and the message was cutting through, right? People were coming out of their houses to campaign. People were coming out of their houses to come and support. People, there's one example I always cite, and it's something that is truly magical. We do the postal vote letters before that are designed to arrive before postal ballots get to the doors.
Yes.
And I had 4,500 postal votes letters to get out, and in day 1 and 2, I'd managed to get out 600. So I had 3,500, 4,000 postal votes letters left to do, and we were coming up to postal vote day, and I'm panicking, thinking, how am I going to do this, right? And what I've done is I've created a community WhatsApp group. So everyone in my community, there's probably about 500 members of the community in this WhatsApp group. So I put a message on there saying, look, I'm trying to get these postal vote letters out. I'm really struggling. The deadline's tomorrow. And the next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls. Messages have gone out. Mothin needs help. What do we do? Mothin needs help. Let's go and help him. And I get a couple of phone calls saying, meet at this corner of this street. And a couple of vans pull up. Vanfuls of lads jump out the car. We had I don't know how many people we had, close to probably 100 people that night. And within a couple of hours, literally a couple of hours, we delivered 3,500, 4,000 postal vote letters.
Amazing.
And that's what community organising can do. And that's something I haven't seen within the Green Party. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen it even when I was an activist for the Labour Party. I haven't seen that.
That's incredible. I think it also speaks of the community's faith in you, right? Because you inspire them enough to do this. And listening to your story, because we know that, in the Green Party, it's about, okay, there's target to win seats, and this is where you go for, and everyone else is a paper candidate, and you started off as a paper candidate. And what this sounds like to me, because I think some people are talking about, well, how do we scale this, right? You going for deputy leader. So let's say you are deputy leader. How would you change this so that, we're scaling it this way? So people who are not in the typical target to win type wards or constituencies can do something like what you've done, because I find this really, really inspiring and hopeful.
I think you've got to look at what happened with a lot of candidates in the north, especially. If you look at people like Shabir Fazal, you look at Mariam from Huddersfield, you look at the recent campaign with Suhail Asghar in Accrington. All of these people built up community bases. Target to Win says that you've got to have so much. You've got to be building so much vote share. You've got to have these people within your campaign team. You've got to have this many leaflets going out at this time. Now, Uncle Shabir's campaign lasted maybe about 4 weeks. Mariam's campaign in Huddersfield lasted about 5 or 6 weeks. And within that short space of time, she lost by 40 votes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Uncle Shabir won, and he won from a Labour Tory stronghold. Greens had never had a look in. So when I talk about grassroots organising, I'm not talking about bringing in Green Party activists from all over and shipping them in and then getting them to come out and door knock. What I'm talking about is getting the community so involved that they're the ones who are coming out and putting you in because they believe in what your message, right?
Absolutely.
This is one of the things that I say grassroots organising and other people say grassroots organising, and we mean two different things, right? They mean that we're going to get activists that come in and build a party up. And what I mean is we're going to turn the community into the people who they not only are going to vote for you, but they're going to be the ones who campaign for you, and they're going to be the ones that are putting the signs up and doing all the work, and they're going to be the ones who are transforming change. And that's how you get empowerment into these communities.
It's within their
That's how
own
you get
community.
empowerment,
Yeah.
and people really get involved, and you inspire people. That's what I talk about when I'm talking about grassroots activism.
Amazing. That's fantastic. I mean, you are the definition of a real social justice warrior. And when we talk about beyond party politics, how do we connect to everyday struggles? The housing crisis, the jobs crisis, the racism, and of course, the war and the genocide that is being supported and given legal cover. How do we deal with these things, and how do we connect them into our daily lives?
I grew up at a time when Paki bashing was a thing. You had, you're right, buddy. Yeah, the National Front still readily patrolling the streets. I remember going to school, and you didn't know if you were going to get beat up on your way to school or not. Yeah, it was that bad.
Absolutely.
People can't imagine that sort of thing, and I fear at the moment. I fear that we're returning to that time. One of my first real experiences of racism was when I was in primary school. Some kids grabbed me, quite older, and they took me and they pinned me down against a wall, and they pissed on me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry to
It
hear that.
wasn't, and then they were going to beat me up, and it wasn't. The only reason that they didn't beat me up was because my brother saw, he came running around, and he chased them off.
Yeah, those are sadly everyday experiences, and I hope our children don't have to experience that. So thank you very much for sharing that.
We've had that, right? We had a time during the early 2000s, late 90s, that things looked really good. Things were really positive. People were starting to become aware of issues around race, and society was becoming a lot more accepting. And it looked good for a while, but now it's going backwards. Since the Iraq War, black and brown people have been marginalized. Muslim community has been the focal point of a lot of hate and a lot of overbearing laws like Prevent and the Anti-Terrorism Act. It focuses a lot on racialized communities, and it targets racialized communities and makes them to be the other. People openly call us the fifth column in society. we're everyday part and parcel of society. We're people who are the fabric of this society. Do you know, my dad literally built this country up after the Second World War. He produced the steel in the steel, he produced the steel that rebuilt this country. I mean, so when I say my dad built this country, he literally built it. He produced the steel to build a country. But
Yes.
our history is forgotten about.
Yeah, and this goes to the rhetoric that's happening at the moment, right? Like whether we're talking about economic woes, homelessness, NHS, everyone says, "Oh, it's the immigrants," for example, and whatever that means, right? So, what do you say to people who blame migrants for everything that's going wrong with this country?
So I went to a migrant hotel last night, so this is quite fresh. Okay. So there was a few text messages going around saying that there were race riots happening, and where it was happening, it's the next ward to me. So my ward is Gipton Hare Hills. This hotel's in Seacroft, so it borders my ward. And as soon as I heard that there were race riots happening, I, I, I prayed a couple of units of namaz, and then I headed straight up there. I went up, but when I got there, it wasn't it wasn't the social media posts. What was being spread on social media wasn't accurate. It was
Mhm.
entirely false. But there were some protesters. So instead of just standing with one crowd and shouting over at the protesters, I went over and said, "Here, look, I'm a councillor in Gipton Hare Hills. What's going on? Let's have a chat." So I stood there for about 40 minutes talking to people.
Amazing.
People who felt like the migrants were the problem. So
Mhm.
eventually, I got talking to a couple of people, and I was like, "Okay, what do you actually think?" Yeah, and he's like, "All these immigrants that are coming over, they've got a free hotel. I can't get this, and I can't get that." And I'm like, "Okay, why can't you get that?" Oh, because it's the immigrants that are taking it. That's
Yeah.
It was literally spouting garage. It was literally spouting GB News, that kind of talking point. I was like, really? Okay. They're in a hotel. They're getting this much a week, right? About £40 a week they get. What have they taken from you? Um, let's think about what you need. What you need is a house. You need to be able to pay your rent. You need a decent job. So the economy's not working for you. The government's not working for you. Society's not supporting people at the bottom.
Yeah.
So they're frustrated. So I feel sorry for people who are frustrated and say, okay, look, but it's not these guys that are the problem. It's not these other poor people that are the problem. It's society isn't shaped and designed to help us. So what do we need to do? We need to change society. We need to make society work for us. And how do we do that? We have people in power that are from our backgrounds, who have gone through the struggle like we have.
Mm.
There's a real weaponization of fear, especially that of white insecurity that has been peddled for a while now. How do we deal with leaders, media houses that are spewing this as a legal cover for a lot of the hate that the global south and because of the genocide in Gaza has created? How do we manage that? We've seen Labour has gone right completely on this issue. How do we deal with this kind of fundamental shift?
Further right, I don't think it was ever in the correct position in the first place. I think it was always quite wrong. Yeah. And whether we talk about climate change, whether we talk about the reactions and the actions that we take to combat climate change, these discussions are never. These discussions are always done through a European prism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let's just. I'm gonna look at a couple of examples, and we'll think about how that works. So everyone wants electric cars, right? Because we want to be the ones who are feeling good in our eco-friendly cars. We're not producing any emissions. We're driving around, but who's producing the batteries for those cars? It's little kids in Congo.
Yeah.
It's little kids walking barefoot in cobalt mines, getting poisoned, getting cancer, so you can have your luxury car.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're mining with their bare hands without any safety equipment, so we can feel good in the West.
Have these kind of conversations happened in the Green Party at all around the exploitation, cobalt, and other forms of exploitation, whether it's from Congo, whether it's from other parts of the global south?
It
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Maybe I can answer that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay.
It has. I mean, I remember mentioning it in one of my first ever conversations in the Green Party, and it was actually it was called Green Talks, I think, and it was the first time we were talking about the environment, and I basically said the extraction economy and the dumping of waste. It's not that we just extract, we
Yeah.
dump.
Yeah.
And for example, electronic waste, so once the batteries and the cars and the machines and the phones are all used, they're dumped back where they were extracted from. So in places like Ghana, what was happening, and it was happening in informal settlements where people are living in very close quarters,
Yeah.
the young people and everybody that wanted to make a living started melting these things down. And when you're melting it down, you use a lot of poison and chemicals. So it destroyed the atmosphere around those communities. So they were breathing, the children were breathing the toxic fumes, the people were, the elders, everybody health just plummeted in these kind of informal settlements. So the irony is we bring these cars to Europe to say, oh, it's going to help us with our breathing. In the opposite, we're basically destroying the
Breathing
breathing of
somewhere
others.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, Martin. That was absolutely spot on.
So there is a sense of whenever we bring these topics up, it makes people uncomfortable.
Mm.
So we're forever the agitator. We're forever the person who's making, bringing up difficult topics. Or yeah, we we burst that sort of little bubble people like to put themselves in. So it becomes quite a serious conversation when everything's nice and airy fairy. And I'll give you another example. Like I teach permaculture,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a few permaculture ethics, right? Earth care, people care, and the original was fair share, and fair share has been changed a little bit. And fair share doesn't necessarily mean everyone, as the name would suggest. What they include within fair share is population control. And whenever discussions of population come about, it always turns around to be we need less brown people, we need less black people.
Absolutely.
In the simplest form, it doesn't matter how they dress it up. That's the
Mm.
that's the
Yeah.
bottom line of the conversation. So I always find myself in situations where I am the agitator, that I am coming in and putting a different perspective. Because at the same time, Islamically, the world will provide for every living soul, but we have to be custodians of that. Of
Mm.
we have to be custodians of the planet and treat it fairly.
Yeah.
We have to stop
Absolutely.
destroying it.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. And when you say fair share, I mean, to me, it's also fair use, because we think about how much a person in the global south consumes compared to someone here in the UK. It's such a huge difference, isn't it? And that's not taken into account. But yeah, so this kind of leads me to my question around, like, let's say you are deputy leader, right? How would you improve the Green Party comms when it comes issues like this, or we're talking about Palestine or Iran, right? You mentioned Congo, Sudan, other global south countries, right? I mean, because at the moment the lens is still very imperialistic. Although I know, I mean, like Green Party people like to think, oh, we get it right and all that, but there's still that sense of an imperialistic Western lens. How would you describe yourself as the agitator, right? So how would you broaden that lens so that global majority, global South people, our voices are heard as well?
Absolutely.
The thing is, I think we've got to start from the very basics. Before we start solving international issues and solving national issues, we've got a party that doesn't have a racism policy. Yeah. In 2025, we've got a party that doesn't have a racism policy. We've got to make sure that at conference, A42 and A45, enabling a racism platform and putting that racism platform into practice, entered and adopted by the party. Yeah.
Mm.
This has actually been written by global majority people. So it's the first time that we're starting to take control of the narrative a little bit. That, okay, we're going to talk about racism, and we're going to talk about it racism, and we're going to talk about it from lived experiences.
And it has to wait for us. Like they had to wait for us to come and do it in 2025. We had to come and do it. Nobody else would do it. We had to come and do it. So
I
thank you
think
very
people
much.
tried in the past, though. I think people
Yes,
have
they
tried.
did. Yep. Absolutely.
But so hopefully this year is going to be the year that the Green Party starts making changes and taking steps to be an anti-racist party. Because it's not enough anymore to be just get on with your life and not be racist.
Right.
Yeah, with the rise of the far right, it's the risk is too big. We need anti-racism.
Could you describe to people who may not be able to discern that difference between not being racist and being anti-racist?
Situations where people, people think they're not racist. People are accepting. People get on well, but that's when everything is going well. Now, how do you maintain that level of composure when there's a little bit of conflict, when there's disagreement? How do you maintain that level when all of these things start coming into play? Or you're having a robust debate, or that person's a bit aggressive, he's very aggressive, is that person. He's not aggressive, he's just expressing his point in a passionate way.
Expressing a lived experience. Yeah. And I think that's the problem. They want us to disconnect between the reality, sorry.
But it's I mean, what you're saying is the words that are used to describe people from global majority backgrounds, right? You try and talk about how your achievements, and you're arrogant. You're not someone who's confident. You're arrogant. You're not someone who's assertive. You're aggressive.
Yep.
So you yourself have been a target of these kind of, I'd say, attacks, basically, right? How you've been painted in the media, how you've been painted even by Elon Musk. In a sense, that must be quite, I don't know whether it's scary or even flattering that Elon Musk has taken notice of you, but painted in an aggressive, angry Muslim way, like this sort of stereotype. But I've met you, and you are literally the most down-to-earth person I know, because you are with the earth as well, right? I have not seen that, and yet people are using that to describe you, which they probably wouldn't do if you were white, blonde, blue eyes. Let's just say it for what it is, right?
I mean, so when it happened after my election speech, what everyone ignores is the first thing that I said, right? And the first thing that I said was, "This is for the people of Gipton and Hare Hills." That this is for the people of Gipton and Hare Hills. Yeah, So the first thing I said was, the community that voted me in, this win is for you, and you're the ones who've been let down. You're the ones who've been ostracized. You're the ones who've been forgotten about. And it's a chance for you to rise up.
Yeah.
I dedicated my speech to Gaza as well, to Palestine. What's wrong with that? I've got a connection. I'm a Muslim. Do you want me to forget who I am just so I can fit in? And the snapshot, open mouth, hand in the air, make it look as crazy as possible. Yeah, you take a snapshot from mid video, and even if it's a sensible video like this, you can make someone look
Absolutely.
straight. Yeah, and that's the way they went. That's the way they portrayed me. But again, it goes back down to party support. When that happened, where was the party? It wasn't there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I first came across that post, and it came, and it was, for me, it was all of a sudden just looking at all the comments after that, and I basically was wondering, I was like, do people not understand that we say Alhamdulillah 101 times a day? When we're happy, when we're sad, when we're praying, when we see our children, when we see the world around us. They really don't appreciate that. And because the story has always been, oh, that is what terrorists say. That's what the narrative has always been, whether it's in the movies, whether it's been even in the news media. Whenever they're showing conflict around the world, you will hear Allahu Akbar in the videos that they're sharing around. And all that was to create this, like I said, the weaponization of white insecurity, has been what's being used to divide all of us, whether we are white from the global south, from the Muslim community, from the Jewish community, from the LGBTQIA community. We are constantly being divided by the people who control our lives, and we're pitted against each other. And you break that mold, Martin. You really break that mold.
The thing is, we say it so often, it's second nature. And when something's second nature and they can turn your natural disposition into something different and try and make it out as the other. 40 years of my life, I've been in this country. Yeah, I was born here, raised here, went to school here, worked here all my life. And now, because I said Allahu Akbar, I'm a bad guy. But if you look at I've got a colleague here in Leeds, Shahab, and he always talks about, look, you're going to do it just by being you, right? And he said this to me after something happened. You know, the Hare Hills riots,
Yeah.
right? So again, I went viral for intervening in the Hare Hills riots. So those same papers who were demonizing me a couple of months ago, they were praising me for my actions. And Shahab just said, look, you didn't have to do anything for that. You just have to be you. Just carry on being you and you'll be all right. You know? Um,
Absolutely. It shines
and
through.
this,
I mean, you're not a career politician, and that shines through. I think that's what we need in society today. We need leaders. We don't need people to play the part. And that's what we like about you, Martin, is that you didn't come here to play a part. You came here to lead. You came here to help. And I think that's what's winning people over.
you asked me at the start is why I got involved. And this is one of the things that's always frustrated me as career politicians. You know, people come out of school, come out of university, they get a job in a political party, they work as a political undersecretary to an MP, and they work their way up the ladder. And we have that not just within national, in the main parties, but we have that in our own party. We have people who all they've done is worked within the Green Party. And whenever we've got that, and they've got no life experience and they've never lived and seen the world, all we're going to end up with is the same replicas of the same main parties. We have to have life experience and we have to bring that life experience to the party.
And how would you attract people like you, Martin? And when I say like you, I basically mean people with lived life experience, from the similar backgrounds, right? All across the country, different towns. I think what's interesting. Okay, we all know. Just was it 2-3 days ago? Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana announced your party. So there's a sort of new hope, right, for people who've been disillusioned all this while, and you see all these people sort of coming in. Oh, well, I've signed up to your party, and then the Green Party's going like, hang on, we're behaving like a bunch of like, like we're some guy who's been rejected by the girl, and I know that's such a stereotype, but I feel that's how we're behaving, and I'm like thinking, hang on, can we be a bit more reflective here and ask the question I think a lot of Green Party members don't want to ask is like, why are we not attractive enough?
We keep talking about how we've got 4 MPs, right? We could have been sat on 6 MPs right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We could have been sat on 6 MPs had green purity testing not driven people away. And
Wow.
I speak to especially Uncle Shabir because he was around and involved with one of the conversations, right? And he talks to me. He tells me a story about one of their proper greens, right? So there's a left, and this proper green comes along and he says, "Oh, where's this other lad?" Right? Oh, he's not involved anymore. Oh, that's a shame because he was a proper green. What's implicit in there is, Shabir, you're not a proper green. Yeah, you're not a real green.
Wow.
And I got a lot of that. Do you know? I got a lot of that. Not just in my local party, but I got a lot of it from national party as well. Or I get a lot of it from the media sometimes. And I'll challenge anyone to come across my green credentials.
We understand that the Green Party has always been an environmental party, but over the last few years,
Yeah.
it's been trying to move towards a social justice party. Can we genuinely be a social justice party if we cannot deal with the exploitation of people, here in this country, the exploitation of people abroad, the extractive economy, and this insatiable desire for state violence and authoritarianism in the UK today, from what we've seen with protesters being arrested. How do you think we can challenge these issues?
So you don't end things with a nice easy question, do you? You go for the it's not some easy questions here.
I apologize. Gotta go for the jugular for these ones.
Unpack it bit by bit. Okay. How do we move to a social justice party from just being a purely planetary party or planetary focused party? I think we've got to return to our roots. You know, the Ecology Party and the People's Party, these were social justice parties. They weren't just about just about the planet or the environment. It was a big part of it, but equity, social justice, this was all part and parcel. This is all part and parcel of looking after the planet. Climate change and thinking about climate change, this is a luxury problem. You know, why is it a luxury problem? If you're struggling to feed your children, you're worried about the threat of eviction, you're worried about your health, you're having to work 2 or 3 jobs. When have you got the time to think about the climate?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So first of all, you've got to have the privilege of thinking about the climate. Okay. But does that mean that these people aren't ecologically minded or these people should be ignored? So when we talk about proper greens, we're not just talking about tree huggers. We've got to think about people who are looking at what is causing society to fail and how do we turn society from a purely consumer and consumption focused society into a society that actually works on needs. We've come to such a society, such a point in society that anything you want you can get anything you want with the click of a finger. You can buy something today and get it delivered to your home tomorrow. It's the same company who'll deliver things to you, the consumer, from today to tomorrow. You order it now, it'll come tomorrow. That same company won't allow its staff to go to the toilet while they're on shift. And if they do go to the toilet, or if they do go for the break starts the minute they start at the station, and then it takes them 10 minutes to walk out of the factory because the factory is that big, get to the toilet, do their business, and they've got to get back. Otherwise, they either have to work extra or they lose money. We're treating people like animals.
Absolutely.
You know, people aren't meant to do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most shocking thing that I saw this week was the delivery people living under bridges, and everybody is all up in arms about, migrants are working. I think the question is not whether migrants are working or not. I think the question is, why are these companies allowed to do this? These corporations who are employing people contrary to the law, by the way. They're not supposed to be employing refugees. I don't know why that's the issue. Refugees would want to work and help build this country like all other people that came to this country. But you see that inequality becoming more and more, that someone is even working and still living under a bridge. And when we say minorities, or we think it's just migrants, honestly, I have seen it happening to British people who are living and working. They live on the streets and they're working. So it's not just the migrant issue, it's the fact that this economy is about exploitation of people and extraction of our wealth to use for wars and to pay off banks like they did in 2008.
So just think about Deliveroo for a second. Look at that model. Before Deliveroo was around, you still got your food delivered. All you'd have to do is ring the takeaway that you wanted food from, and they'd deliver it. And what they'd do is they'd employ a delivery driver. So they gave them job guarantee, they gave them rights, they gave them proper terms and conditions. Might not have been the best job in the world, but they had a secure job. Now with Deliveroo, what you've got is a third party's coming. It's taken that job out of the takeaway or the restaurant or wherever it was, and said, okay, now you're self-employed. But for the privilege of you being self-employed, we're going to take 25% of whatever you earn, and that's because we provide this platform. And instead of him having that job security and going to that one place and working there, now he has to go to 5 takeaways, pick up 5 different things and deliver them to 5 different places. What we're allowing is mega corporations to transform our society. We're allowing these mega corporations to take ordinary people and exploit them, and we're allowing them to get away with it. And on top of that, the governments often across the world, not just in the UK, they subsidise them and they give them benefits. So you're talking about bailing out banks. Governments don't just spend money like that. You know what they do is, if you're a small business or if you're a private individual, you pay council tax, you pay business rates because you are trapped. But if you're a large corporation and you say, I'm going to create 100 jobs or 500 jobs, what the government does is say, okay, you don't have to pay council tax for the next 5 years. So spending money, but it's just giving away money. So these are the hidden ways that corporations are given incentives. But if what we need to be doing is empowering that small entrepreneurship, making people part and parcel of the society that they live, that they're building.
And you're talking about the warehouse as well as, and I remember you mentioning in an interview as well that you speaking with members of the union, and I think the Green Party isn't reaching out. So I'm thinking of you as deputy leader, right? The Green Party isn't quite reaching out to unions in the way they should be, right? Because clearly the unions that are historically tied to Labour have felt very let down over the past year or so. How do you see yourself as deputy leader trying to sort of reach out to unions, whether we're talking about Unison, Unite, and the others?
So yeah, I mean, we need more trade unionists in the party. We need people who are active within trade unions who are going to be joining the Green Party and finding the Green Party an attractive prospect. How do we do that? Well, we help the unions where we can. And this is one of the things that I'm doing at the moment, is helping unionize Amazon warehouse in Leeds. But Amazon owns loads of warehouses across the country. Every site has to be unionized separately. So why aren't we leading the way in unionizing all of those warehouses? Where are the green activists that are helping unionize all of those? That's just one sector. That's one business. There's lots of people who are doing insecure jobs. Why aren't we there with them? We need to be with the people.
Final question. I promise, Martin. This is my final question. So my question is on the demonization of the working class in this country. There's been this drive to say that the working class are the ones who are the racists, when we know it's the politicians, when we know it's the company, the media houses, when we know it's not just the working class, but across the wider segment of society. But the working class is specifically targeted for this. What do you think about this, and how can we change that narrative and engage with working class communities from across the country?
I'm working class. Where are the working class voices that are making the decisions? And when I say where are the working class voices, I mean those working class voices that are true to their roots. You do get people who come from working class backgrounds, but the minute they get a sniff of power, they change completely and try and fit into the ruling class. We need people who remain true. That doesn't mean not have aspiration. When someone was criticizing me for not being working, for saying that I'm not working class anymore because I'm an accountant, people who've grown up in poverty, should they never have aspiration? Of course they should. We should create the society that gives them aspiration, gives them hope, we keep talking about hope. Aspiration is hope. It's wanting to do better, wanting to have your kids to do better. We're not talking about greed. There's a huge difference. And the working class, I think who you're referring to is white working class people. But I don't think we should be distinguishing between white working class and black and brown and other immigrant communities. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is people who are not capitalists, people who are still at the very bottom of the pile or just starting to work their ways out of it. We're talking about those kind of people. And how do we get them to work together? That's the challenge. To see that your struggle is the same as my struggle. This is one of the things I say to people when people ask me about LGBT issues is, look, the same people who are attacking you for being trans or for being gay or for being lesbian or whatever, they're the same people who are attacking me and demonizing me.
Absolutely.
They're the same people who are trying to get white working class people to turn on brown working class people.
Absolutely.
And get and make divisions between one ghetto and the other. Instead, what we should be doing is saying, right, do you know what? Your problem over there, you've got a housing problem. I've got a housing problem. You can't pay your bills. I can't pay my bills. How do we stick
Well,
together in
yeah.
order to challenge the system that's keeping us down?
Fantastic response. I really enjoyed that one. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Martin. It's been a pleasure. Animah, I mean, you instigated this, so
I did.
you got what you wanted. So fantastic.
Oh, you know, when I'm listening to you, Martin, I think you truly embody the party's slogan: "Real hope, real change."
I think I don't know if I've done justice to some of the questions that you've asked today, but these are the type of questions that we could write essays on.
We'll have you back over and over again, Martin. We're going to have you on as deputy leader next. So thank you very much.
I hope you still remember us.
You got to keep me grounded. That's all I'm saying.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. It was really eye-opening and a pleasure listening to you, hearing your stories, and I hope our listeners, our audience, will be as inspired by you as we were. Thank you so much for your time.
These are conversations that need to happen. I'm glad that we're starting to have these conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Councillor. I wish you a very good evening and a successful campaign, and speak to you when you are our new deputy. Thank you.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.